Blackwood Academy for Girls, Massachusetts. My name is Nora. I was 15 when my father dropped me off at Blackwood Academy. He told me it was the best thing for my future, but as I looked up at the gray stone spires of the dormitory, I felt like I was looking at a tombstone. The school felt wrong from the second I stepped out of the car. It was too quiet. No laughter, no music, just the wind whistling through the pine trees. My dad kissed my forehead and told me to be a brave girl. I watched his taillights disappear into the mist, and for the first time in my life, I felt truly alone. Or so I thought. Mrs. Gable, the head matron, was a woman who looked like she hadn't smiled since the Great Depression. She didn't offer a tour, she offered a list of ways to get expelled. Rule 1, she said, her voice like sandpaper. Never leave your hair down after sunset. Rule 2, never approach the great oak in the center of the courtyard. Rule 3, if you hear a girl crying in the bathroom when it's empty, you keep walking. I thought she was just trying to scare the new meat. My dorm room was cold, even with the heater on. That night, a girl named Alice introduced herself. She was pale, dressed in an old-fashioned uniform, and spoke in a whisper. She told me she was my protector. She said the other girls were cruel, but she wouldn't let them touch me. I didn't realize then that Alice wasn't on the student roster. It started on day 3. A group of seniors led by a girl named Courtney decided I was an easy target. They cornered me in the showers, ready to pull the classic, humiliate the freshman, routine. Suddenly, Courtney screamed. Her locker door, which was wide open, slammed shut on her hand with enough force to shatter bone. There was no one near the locker. Then, Courtney's hair began to sizzle. A patch of it simply burned away, as if an invisible torch had been held to it. I looked in the mirror and saw Alice standing right behind me. But when I turned around, the room was empty. Courtney was on the floor, sobbing about the ghost. I realized that Alice didn't just want to be my friend, she wanted to be my weapon. Things escalated. Alice started leaving me notes on my pillow, written in a cramped, 90s-style handwriting. She told me the names of the girls who had bullied her back in 1994. I went to the library and dug through the archives. I found a newspaper clipping. In October 1994, a girl named Alice Vaughn had disappeared from Blackwood. The official report said she ran away. The unofficial legend: a group of girls had locked her in a basement boiler room as a prank and forgot about her for 3 days. When they finally opened the door, the room was empty, save for a single shoe and a series of scratch marks on the inside of the door. Alice wasn't protecting me because she liked me. She was using my energy to manifest. She was angry, and her anger was starting to leak into the real world. Every time she protected me, someone ended up in the infirmary with horrific, unexplainable injuries. The school brought in a local specialist, a man who understood the old ways of the mountains. He told me that Alice had anchored her soul to the great oak because that's where she used to hide to cry. She's a leech, he whispered. She's feeding on your loneliness, Nora. If you don't let her go, she'll pull you into that tree with her. We stood under the oak at midnight. The specialist began a binding ritual using salt and iron. The wind picked up, shrieking like 1,000 dying birds. Alice appeared, but she wasn't the pretty girl I'd seen. She was a hollowed-out husk of shadows, her eyes weeping black tar. She screamed that she wouldn't be forgotten again. I had to look her in the eye and tell her, "You are dead, Alice. You don't belong here." The tree split down the middle with a deafening crack, and for a second, the forest was filled with white light. When it faded, the cold was gone. Blackwood Academy is still there, but the great oak is a blackened stump. I still hear a whisper in my ear sometimes when I'm alone, but now, I just keep walking. Caddo County, Oklahoma. My name is Arshad. I grew up believing that a man's character is defined by his willingness to help those in need. But on a Tuesday night in July, I learned that some people in need aren't people at all. I was driving back to the ranch after a late shift when a woman stumbled into the middle of the highway. I slammed on the brakes, the tires screaming against the heat-baked Oklahoma road. I missed her by inches. She was covered in dirt, her clothes torn, her eyes wide with a terror that felt infectious. She said her name was Samara. She told me her family's car had flipped 3 miles back. I looked at the empty, dark horizon. No headlights. No smoke. Just the endless prairie. But Samara was bleeding from a head wound, so I did what any good man would do. I helped her into my truck. I didn't notice that the air inside the cab suddenly smelled like stagnant water and old grave dirt. The nearest county hospital. The place was understaffed and smelled of bleach and despair. The nurses tried to put her in an observation ward, but Samara became hysterical. She pointed a trembling finger at room 13. "I have to be in there," she hissed. Her voice had changed, it was deeper, vibrating with a frequency that made my teeth ache. Against their better judgment, they moved her. Within an hour, the patient who had been in the bed next to her, a young girl recovering from a minor surgery, flatlined. The heart monitor's steady beep 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 turned into a soul-crushing drone. When the doctors rushed in, Samara was sitting upright, humming a lullaby. She looked younger. The deep gash on her forehead had already begun to scar over, not with pink flesh, but with something gray and scaly. She looked at me and whispered, "3 more to go." I should have run then. I should have left her to the doctors. But I felt a strange, magnetic pull to her. She had nowhere to go, no family, no ID, no memory of where she lived. My wife, Sarah, has a heart of gold. When I brought Samara back to our ranch, just for a few days, Sarah didn't argue. She gave Samara a guest room and a warm meal. But our daughter, Lily, wouldn't go near her. Lily is 6, and kids have a sixth sense for rot. She told me that Samara's shadow didn't match her body. She said that when Samara walked past the hallway mirror, the reflection didn't have any eyes. The atmosphere in the house soured. The cattle in the barn started acting up, kicking at their stalls until their hooves bled. My younger brother, Ollie, who lives with us, started complaining of vivid nightmares. He dreamt of a woman with iron teeth harvesting the souls of our family like wheat. We all thought it was just the stress of the accident. We were wrong. The third night, Ollie woke me up at 3 a.m. He was white as a sheet, pointing at the floorboards. A trail of dark, thick blood led from the kitchen straight to Samara's door. It wasn't fresh, it looked like it had been there for a century, oozing out from between the wood. I knocked on her door. It creaked open. The room was freezing. Samara was standing by the window, wearing one of Sarah's nightgowns. She looked beautiful, but it was a predatory kind of beauty, like a deep-sea fish with a glowing lure. She walked toward Ollie and touched his cheek. Her touch left a black smudge that wouldn't wash off. She whispered that she was hungry, and that Ollie looked like he would be sweet. I pushed him out of the room and told Samara she had to leave in the morning. She just laughed. It was the sound of 1,000 dry leaves skittering across a grave. Final night was a lunar eclipse. The blood moon. I woke up to find Ollie gone. His bed was cold. I ran to the barn, and there she was. Samara wasn't the girl from the highway anymore. She was a hollow soul, a witch who survives by consuming the youth of others to stay immortal for another century. She had Lily tied to a post, a ritual knife of obsidian in her hand. Ollie was standing nearby, his eyes glazed over, totally possessed. I lunged at her, but she threw me back with a wave of her hand. She shrieked that she needed the purest blood to complete her harvest. I remembered a silver medallion my grandfather had given me, a relic from the old country meant to ward off the evil eye. I pressed it into her forehead. The sound she made wasn't human. Her skin began to smoke and peel, revealing the ancient, shriveled hag underneath. She dissolved into a pile of black ash and crow's feathers. We survived, but Ollie never spoke again. And Lily. She still wakes up screaming, saying she can hear the hitchhiker humming that lullaby in the wind. Remember, on the open road, never pick up a stranger. Because sometimes, you're not giving them a ride, you're giving them away in Savannah, Georgia, the Oglethorpe estate. My name is Jackson, and I never believed in ghosts until the night I proposed to Susie. We were at her family's estate in Savannah, a place where the Spanish moss hangs like funeral veils from the oaks. The party was beautiful, but Susie's sister, Clara, looked like she was attending a wake. She pulled Susie aside and whispered, "You can't do this. He'll come for him. Just like he came for the others." I thought it was just sibling jealousy or some old family drama. I didn't see the figure standing at the edge of the woods, a tall, gaunt man in a tattered tuxedo, holding a tambourine that made no sound when he shook it. He wasn't a guest. He was a debt collector. A week after the party, the sightings began. I was the only one who could see him. I'd be brushing my teeth, and there he'd be in the mirror, standing right behind me, grinning with too many teeth. But when I turned around, the bathroom was empty. I started hearing a rhythmic thump clink in the hallways at night. It sounded like a wooden leg and the jingling of silver coins. Susie grew distant. She stopped wearing her engagement ring. She told me she was cursed and that every man who ever loved a woman in her bloodline died before the wedding day. I laughed it off as Southern Gothic superstition. Then, my car's brakes failed on a steep bridge. As I plummeted toward the water, I saw him sitting in the passenger seat, clapping his hands in silent applause. I survived, but I knew then, this wasn't a haunting. This was an execution, said Susie's father. He finally told me the truth. In 1920, his grandfather had been the wealthiest man in the county. During a local festival, a group of traveling performers, marginalized outcasts who were said to have the sight, came to the estate asking for a fair share of the harvest they had helped pick. Instead of paying them, the grandfather set the hounds on them. Their leader, a man known for his flamboyant silk robes and silver tambourine, was cornered near the well. Before the dogs finished him, he spat a mouthful of blood and cursed the estate. No man shall ever join this family and live. No woman shall ever know the peace of a husband. Until the debt is paid in blood and silver, I will be your wedding guest. Within a year, the grandfather died. Then his sons. For a century, the men of the Oglethorpe line had been picked off one by one, always right after an engagement. A local hoodoo practitioner told us there was one way to buy time. Susie had to undergo a fast of protection. For 3 days leading up to the full moon, she couldn't eat, drink, or speak a word of love to me. Her silence and her sacrifice would create a spiritual barrier that the guest couldn't cross. It was agonizing. I watched her grow weak, her eyes sunken, but her resolve was iron. We stayed inside a circle of salt and brick dust in the parlor. Outside, the guest screamed. He shattered the windows. He mimicked my voice, begging her to let him in. He showed himself to her finally, not as a man, but as a whirlwind of black feathers and broken coins. He was waiting for the moment she broke her fast so he could strike. He said that if we could complete the marriage vows before the fast ended, the curse would break. We didn't have a church or a preacher. We had a Bible, 2 rings, and Susie's dying father as a witness. The guest didn't play fair. He manifested physically, knocking over candles and setting the curtains ablaze. The room was a furnace. I had to carry Susie through the flames to the center of the room. As I slipped the ring onto her finger, the guest lunged, his fingers like icy needles reaching for my throat. But then, something strange happened. 3 other figures appeared, ghosts of the other performers who had been killed in 1920. They weren't there for us, they were there for him. They grabbed the guest, dragging him back into the shadows, whispering that the debt was settled because Susie had offered her own life to save mine. The fire went out as quickly as it started. The guest was gone. We are married now, and the estate is quiet. But I still don't like the sound of a tambourine. And in Savannah, We've learned one thing: always pay your workers, and never, ever ignore the men standing at the edge of the woods.